Welcome to Queers and Quills, the official podcast. I'm audiobook narrator Kirt Graves. Every episode, I invite an attending author or narrator to join me for a one-on-one conversation about their lives and their art, so attendees and readers from across the world can get to know them not only as professionals, but as people. Joining me today is Dominic Lim. Hello.
Hello, my friend.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Dominic Lim's debut, All the Right Notes, was named a Best Book of 2023 by over 15 publications, including USA Today, Goodreads, Library Journal, and Entertainment Effin' Weekly. His follow-up, Karaoke Queen, is a 2024 Amazon Editor's Pick. Dominic is a member of the Writer's Grotto and co-hosts the long-running Babylon Salon reading series in San Francisco. He holds a Master of Music from Indiana University Jacobs School of Music, is an alum of Oberlin College and Conservatory of Music, and is a proud Actors Equity Association member. How does he find the time? He lives in Oakland with his loving husband, Peter, and their whiny cat, Phoebe. He is also my drag nemesis, the only person on Earth who has beat me in a lip sync contest, and I will never let him forget it.
Amazing.
And yet, I still invited you on the pod. So
that's right. I'm your friend.
I don't know about frenemy. I like nemesis.
Okay,
it
nemesis.
Seems like
better.
You know, like we can still be friends and also nemesis. Nemesis.
Yeah.
Yeah. For us, it's nemesis.
I love it.
So, Dominic, tell us your author origin story. How did you go from all of those music degrees to writing books?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, my background is mostly for the majority of my life is in music and acting. And I lived in New York, and I was a musical theater actor. And I went to school for music. But I mean, I've always been reading and I've always been writing my whole entire life. And even when I was in New York, I would write short stories every now and then. I was always keeping a journal. And then when I moved back to California after I had finished my late in life master's degree, I kind of had I would guess a pre-midlife crisis.
Okay.
I mean, I would kind of like hit that glass ceiling in terms of being a musical theater actor. I realized coming out of music school that I didn't really have what it took to be a professional musician. So, you know, I realized there are these things that I love to do that I think I were better off just doing as a pastime, as a hobby. And I decided to explore writing, and not necessarily writing as a career, but because it was something that I mean, I went to therapy, and therapy is great. My therapist was like,
Snaps for therapy.
Exactly, 5 stars.
Yeah.
She was like, explore something that makes you happy, and it doesn't have to be your career. And I started taking writing classes, I think in like 2013, and it just led. I think, long story short, every class that I took, I had a great teacher, a really supportive teacher who was like, you've got something, keep going. And different teachers would support me in different ways, like bringing me to readings, or like one actually published my very first short story online. And so one thing led to another. And I actually took a novel writing class, and that's where All the Right Notes came from. It actually just came from a class. So, yeah.
I love that. What was the timeline? Like, so you start taking classes in 2013, and then you start the novel when, and when does it come out?
2013, I started taking classes just for fun, and then I think I started to ramp it up around, like, 2016, and then by 2017, that's when I took the writing class. The novel writing class, and that's where I started to write All the Right Notes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took me a couple years, like 3 years, to get it all together. I was taking my time. I had no deadline or anything like that. So, and that's when I sort of put that book together, and found an agent, and the rest is history. So, yeah.
Yeah. And because I've read the book, I know that both of your books, but I know that especially the first one really intersects a lot with your own identity and like what you wanted to see on the page that you weren't seeing. So can you speak a little bit more to that? Like what parts of the story you really felt maybe not responsible, but like that you wanted to bring forward and like write the book
totally.
You're not seeing on the shelf?
It is my first book, so I think people's first books generally tend to be very like, not, autobiographical in some way or form. And this one is for sure all the right notes with my music and my theater background. But yes, definitely because of my background being Filipino and being queer in particular. And all my life, I've surrounded myself with people of color and queer people and all sorts of different diverse people. And I wanted that to be reflected in my book in particular, because it is really important to me to have that sort of visibility on the page. I think younger people today, especially with like so much amazing young adult stuff, there's so many queer stories available now that I didn't necessarily have when I was growing up. And I was always looking for that because I knew I don't know about you, but I knew I was gay like in 5th grade. I mean, I was like okay, really early.
A little early for me. I was not far behind, but I was also growing up in the conservative Midwest, so I was figuring out I was gay before I knew there was a word for it.
And I don't know if I even knew what the word meant, but I knew that I was attracted to boys, and so I was looking for it really early. And I'm dating myself, but this was in the the 80s, so there wasn't anything, and I lived in rural Virginia. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, so there was nothing, and I always held on to that. Knowing that kid, that boy, he exists today, even as good as it is now. But and then also we're backsliding. We're like, the government is literally trying to erase our existence now. I mean, that is the sad fact. Mm-hmm. Literally from like websites and stuff. So it's even more important now to put ourselves out there on the page. And that is something I will never not do. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I will never write a book that doesn't have a queer character in it. And I'm almost positive I will never write a story that doesn't have a queer protagonist. So that's how important it is to me, so that we represent, because there are all these kids out there, and not even just kids, people who are vulnerable and who live in really difficult places where they're not free to be who they are, who need to see themselves on the page, mm-hmm. and to be able to read those stories. And I think that's why I gravitated first towards romance, because it was very important for me to write a happy story, a happy ending. I mean, we have lots of trauma already. We have lots of beautiful, beautiful queer stories about trauma and oppression. And of course we need those, and those arise from the difficulties that we face, but people also need to feel joy and to feel hope.
Have you heard from I guess specifically queer Filipino readers who are like, thank you for finally writing this book?
I have
in which
I
can see myself.
Readers, queer Filipino readers, queer readers, all of whom there's a variation of that too, like, so happy to see myself on the page. I've never seen myself on the page like this before. So I think that is the best feedback I could have possibly gotten from this book. Forget anything that any list I've ever made or any nice review I've ever gotten. That's to me, that's the best feedback I've ever gotten.
What were the things that were influencing you growing up? Like, agree. Like, we did not grow up at a time where there was a lot of queer media for us to consume. So there wasn't much of it, but did you find any in your youth? And if it wasn't that, like, what did you have in front of you that was like, this is the thing that has helped me become the writer that I am today? I thought
about this, and I mean, it's like, I try to go back in time to try to recall what my different influences were. And it's easy to remember college, because I read queer theory in college, and in high school, I think I was old enough to be able to find those books. I think in middle school, is where I think maybe I discovered Mercedes Lackey in it was either middle school or early high school, but Mercedes Lackey's Magicians, what is it? Magic's Pawn, Magic's Price, Magic's whatever. That there's a trilogy where the characters is queer, and I still love that trilogy. I mean, I read it every now and then. I think I've read it like 3 or 4 times already because that was the first like experience I had. But even before then, I was already gravitating towards fantasy and science fiction, but in particular comic books. So I would say actually my first influence in terms of me being a writer were comic books, because those were the first, and I still read them. I still spend like $150 a month on comic books to this day. Like I have a budget for it, and I
was gonna say, is that a lot for comic books? I don't know. I don't buy them.
I read a lot of comic books, and I've read a lot of comic books for years and years and years and years, ever since I was a little kid, ever since my dad took me to the convenience store, and I got my first Green Lantern comic book with Green Lantern's crotch like so big on the cover, and I was like, this is amazing. It's like, what is this? So I was hooked, I mean, and then Superman the movies were like they were so formative to me as a kid, in good and bad ways, but mostly good, because I found my sort of respite in entertainment through comic books and cartoons and mythology. And I think it is fairly common for queer readers, queer men, to gravitate towards those characters because they are the other. They are like often ostracized. They have secret identities. They have to keep their who they are and what they do a secret from everyone who loves them, and they're feared and hated by the public and whatever. The X-Men is such a great metaphor for being queer. So those are really the things that influenced me as a writer and as a queer person growing up. And also, I mean, and in particular as a writer, I've mentioned this to other people, that a lot of writers have difficulty writing dialogue. They'll say that that's one of the hardest things that one of the biggest challenges they have. I've never had a problem with dialogue because of comic books, because comic books are basically just dialogue, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's all I ever read growing up. And I was like, I mean, some of it was corny, obviously, but there were some great, like Chris Claremont, who wrote X-Men, they just have fantastic way of like, writing dialogue. So, I owe comic books a lot. But actually I don't, because I've put so much money into the comic book industry. So, right.
But it was a good investment. It was a good, can you write some of that off now?
Oh yeah. I write all of that off. Are you kidding?
Good. I mean, that's worth the writing career alone. Like, I write books, so I can write all of this inspiration and source material off. Yeah. I love that. Do you have aspirations to write a comic book someday?
Like, it's my dream to write a New York best-selling novel or something that like wins a huge prize, just so that Marvel and DC will reach out to me and go, "Hey, you want to write a comic book?" And I'll be like, "Done. I'm dead. I'm deceased. I'm done." Like,
yeah. Would you pick up an established character, or do you have a new one in mind?
Anything. Like, I would take. I mean, I would love the challenge of picking up an established character and an established, property, because it's big name and it's great but there's also kind of a like fear of doing that, because you're going to let down so many people if you write that and you don't write it well. But if you if you make a pitch for a character that no one knows, or you do an original character, like, you can sort of do what you want with it, and there's a little bit more creativity involved. So yeah.
Yeah, I have limited understanding of comic books, but thanks to the MCU and DC making a lot of movies in the last 15 years. I'm more aware of it than I have been in the past. And I just think, like, I feel like I've seen successfully some heroes retconned to be more diverse. So you can rewrite their backstory and get, or make, you know, a new person that has the same superhero identity. But like they're not all white. And then you have like the Kamala Khans of the world where it's like, this is something that's missing. A female Muslim character. Like,
I mean, I like both approaches.
So like,
you know, there's sometimes backlash from that first way of retconning or giving the identity to like a different person. And I can, I guess, sympathize with that because comic book readers are just so attached to their mythologies. But it's like, you know, just grow up, you know, give other characters a chance.
Well, I mean, Green Lantern is a great example of like how that can work because you can pass the mantle on to someone new. The powers and the heroism does not live
and you
within
don't
just
erase
one
that
person.
original person.
There is a mechanism in which they move on.
So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So, usually I would ask the people who I'm interviewing, like, what if somebody was just picking up your work, what should they do? But I'm going to answer for you because I loved the audiobook of All the Right Notes so much that I'm going to say, go buy the physical version just for the sales, but then go get the audiobook version and listen to it because it is so cool. And it is an experience in and of itself.
It is.
Because you also wrote music for it.
And well, first of all, can I just say that for you to say that is just such a huge recommendation and such a huge compliment because, and I know I've told you this in private, but I want to tell everyone else in the world who's listening to this podcast that like I had tried to listen to audiobooks like numerous times and had always given up on them. And it wasn't until I listened to you narrate Matt Wardell's or M.A. Wardell's first book in the Teachers in Love series that I was like, oh, this is what an audiobook is supposed to be. Like I guess I had just picked really bad audiobooks or books with bad narrators. And then like to listen to you do it, I was just like, this is it. Like, this is why people love audiobooks when you have people as talented as you, you know? So for you to say that is a great compliment. And I agree, like All the Right Notes, the audiobook is so special because we had Aaron as a narrator who I had known 20 years before doing a production of Miss Saigon with, actually. And do you know this story at all? Okay, I don't
think I've heard this. Because I listened to it after we met, so I never got the chance to hear about it. I was just typing at you in text in all caps. About how much I love it.
So when it came time to finally get the email for the audition tapes or the audition recordings for the audiobook from my audiobook producer, she was like, so I've got two great options for you. I've got person number one, Ramon Ocampo, who's done, like, he was the narrator. You know who he is, right? Obviously. He's very well known, very Red, White, and Royal Blue narrator, fantastic guy. He's Filipino. Amazing. Nice guy
voice.
Too. And then there's like, and then I have this other guy who has never done an audiobook. He's totally green, but I think you would love him. His name is Aaron Albano. And I was like, I know Aaron. Like, not only did I do Miss Saigon with him 20 years ago in Pittsburgh, but when I was writing the book and I was imagining it to be a musical, not a movie, but a musical, in my head, I cast Aaron Albano as the main character. I had already cast him in my head. So I was like, it's done. Like, I know, God bless Ramon, but we're going with Aaron. And yeah, I co-wrote a song that appears in this book. It's like a musical. So there's a thematic song that sort of weaves its way throughout the book. And Aaron recorded it for the audiobook. And then he did this thing at the end where it becomes like a different like choral production. And he managed to like sing all the choral parts in the background. And it was just so cool. I mean, it was amazing what he did. Well, what they did.
Yeah. It is very cool. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, part of it is he did a great performance, but I also just love when producers think outside the box and see a project like that and think, we can do more in audio, and let's
Absolutely
take advantage of it. Like there's some, like audio and physical books and ebooks, they're all different mediums and they have their strengths. And sometimes a book works great just, from page to microphone, and that's all it needs. But like, there was such an opportunity there, and I love that they took it, that they invested in that. And they said, yes, let's do it. Let's take the risk. And so, yeah, I really, really, truly enjoyed it. So are you ready to play our little game of questions and answers? All right, so the rules of our game are simple. I have a deck of cards, and on each card is a question. These questions aim to learn more about you. Some are biographical, some are hypothetical, and some are just silly. But I'm not picking which questions you will answer. Fate is. So I'm going to deal 3 cards every round. You choose one, and whatever card you pick, you are agreeing to answer it. You do have some options, though. So if a question comes along that you don't want to answer, you have 2 opportunities to switch things up. So you can turn the tables on me one time, forcing me to answer the question, or you can discard a personal question in favor of answering a bookish question from the white deck.
Okay.
Ooh. But the deal is, if I will deal 1 card from the white deck, and you have to answer it.
Okay.
So,
I think so.
Are you ready to play? Okay. All right, here's the first round. Card 1, card 2, or card 3?
Card 2.
Card 2. What's something I would never guess about you?
Gosh, what's something you would never guess about me? Okay. That This is so hard.
Right?
Okay. It's not super funny, but this is the first thing that came to my mind because it has something to do with all the right notes. That I actually did not have a good relationship with my father, like at all. Yeah, people read that book and they're like, oh, you must have the best dad and blah, blah, because the Mr. Cruz is such a great character in that book. And I didn't. We had a very hard, difficult relationship. And that's the great thing about fiction is that you can sort of write what you want to like exist in the world. And I had gotten some feedback about that character that I was like, I've never seen a sympathetic Asian father figure. For some reason, they're always very, well, it's because a lot of times they're very not very good fathers. But, and so that's why I wanted to write he's more kind of based on my mother, actually, to be honest, Mr. Cruz. Yeah. So yeah, my real dad and I did not get along.
But I love that you took that and turned it on its head. Yeah.
Oh,
that's great. And he was one of my favorite characters. So, I mean, you wrote a brilliant character. So good job. All right. Second round. Card 1, card 2, or card 3?
1.
Card 1. Would you rather be the best player on a horrible team or the worst player on a great team?
Gosh. I think okay. So I just did, have you ever done the VR thing? Like gone to VR? Okay. I had never done it before. And my friend Ian asked me to be a part of his gang that did Squid Games VR thing. And it was intense.
Oh, God. Okay,
when
I haven't done that.
The music cue goes beep, beep, whatever it is. It's like, oh my God. And I was definitely the worst player on that team. I mean, of the 6 people that were playing. But I had so much fun. I would rather be actually the worst player on a good team. Because you can learn. You can learn from the people who are better than you. So
right. I'm the same way. Or I don't know that I'm the same way. That would be my answer as well, but mostly because I'm super competitive, and if other people were not pulling their weight, it's not hypothetical. I get mad. This is not a thing I would get mad. I get mad when people don't take the game seriously, when they're not doing their part. It's unfortunate. I've lost friends. So
But I'm the same. I'm totally the same. Yeah. So it's better the other way.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Okay, three this time.
Card 1, 2, or 3. 3 this time. Ooh. What's something that people think makes them look cool, but actually makes them look ridiculous?
Oh, wow. Makes them look cool, but actually makes them look ridiculous. I'm gonna say, and I hate to say this because I do this all the time, but using filters on your on your photographs
Self-read.
and your videos. I'm like, filter that shit. Take out the lines.
Yeah.
And it's not every time that they look worse. I mean, it's got to be tastefully and minimally done. But every now and then you'll look at something and you're like, that is an AI person because that is not real.
Yeah. Filters, you say? I might have to try those someday. All right. Card 1, card 2, or card 3? Card 1. What's the funniest / most disappointing / weirdest text you've received?
Oh, I will tell you right now because I just got it yesterday. It was from my husband's parents, and my mother-in-law. She sent this text message because I had posted that I got a new job, right? I snap, and she said, congratulations on the new job, blah, 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 blah. And I said, thank you so much, Audrey. And then she responded with, like you, and then 10 minutes later,
like, how did you know my
10
name?
minutes later, texted KC. Like, okay.
Well done, Audrey. Good timing right before this podcast.
I mean, she's in her 80s, so, but still.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents aren't in their
They're
80s,
still, right.
and they still sometimes confuse me. So
okay.
All right, I think we have time for 2 more rounds. So card 1, card 2, or card 3. Ooh, what's your worst roommate or house guest story?
Okay, I have one, but I don't want to say it, so I'm going to turn it on you.
Okay. Damn it. Okay. So I actually do know the answer to this. It's very simple. And it's not that this person was a terrible roommate, but it was my friend Brenda. I'm actually a godparent to one of her kids, so like we're still friends. But we lived together for a brief period of time in which she did not tell me when I agreed to move in with her that she was going to have to take her dog from her parents' house. Like it was her dog, but the dog was living with her parents.
Oh.
And the dog was now coming to live with us. And I love dogs. I love almost all dogs. But this yappy little bitch was not for me. And the worst thing is she would get up to go to work at like 4:30 in the morning. Like she would leave super early. And the dog without somebody there was not okay. So she would at like 4:30 in the morning open my bedroom door and the dog would jump on my bed and wake me up so that the dog could then sleep with me until I got up and left. And then, according to our neighbors, bark all day until one of us got home. So I guess the truly bad roommate was the dog. Yeah. Yes. Even though, I mean, God rest her soul. I love all dogs, but this one, she had some issues. So, yeah.
One more.
Yeah. All right. Final round. Card 1, card 2, or card 3. Ooh. That's okay. This is weird. How much would someone have to pay for your little toe? I know.
Pay for my little toe? A shitload of money because I am not into pain. Wait, can I choose the book thing? Can I? Oh, let me choose the book card.
Yeah. Yes, you can. Okay. Let me just shuffle real quick. See what one comes up. I'll do a cut, and here we go. Oh, if you could recommend one book to everyone, what would it be?
That's actually such a hard question, though, you know, because there's so many beautiful books out there. I guess it's one of my favorite books of all time. It's Michael Chabon's, and I can't remember the whole title, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Yeah, so it's one of those formative books I read like I don't know how many years ago, but I was like, oh, this I want to be a writer one day. So I read that book. And it's about these two brothers who I think in the 30s or something were they started this comic book company and one of them's queer. So and the queer storyline sort of ends the entire book. And it was one of those things where like I put the book down on the couch and I was like ugly crying. It's one of those things where you could not you're heaving. You were so, and it wasn't sad. It was just like so like beautiful and poignant. So that's one of my favorite books of all time. So I would recommend that book. Yeah.
I love that recommendation. I'm probably going to go look up that recommendation. Yeah. It's beautiful. So, Dominic, thank you for taking the time to do this. I so appreciate it. And it was so good to get to catch up with you a little bit. And when we stop recording, I will have you tell me that housemate story that's not fit for the internet. So this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you to our listeners for joining us for Queers and Quills, the official podcast. If you're already signed up to attend Queers and Quills, make sure to say hello to me and to Dominic at the Oregon Convention Center in May. If you're not, poor you. But you can follow Queers and Quills on Instagram to follow along with all the fun this year and get updates about ticket availability in the future. Until next time, I'm Kirt Graves, and I hope you're having a very gay day. Queers and Quills, the official podcast, is produced and hosted by Kirt Graves, in coordination with Mahogany Mail and Marley Valentine. All copyrighted material is shared with permission. Music and sound effects are licensed through Storyblocks Audio. All opinions shared are those of the individuals and do not reflect the positions or policies of any company or organization with which they happen to be associated.